Hello everyone, my name is Leo, and in the last couple of months I have invested a lot of time trying to improve my mixing and mastering skills. Also renewing my mixing and mastering plugins and hardware units. So in this video I would like to share the most important or I would say game changer tips that I have learned and that allow me to bring my mixes to the next level. Let's start. The first technique I would like to share helps me a lot to make my lead guitar or vocals become bigger and wider. I'm using a Waves plugin called Real ADT, where ADT stands for Artificial Double Tracking, and was a technique created by the Abbey Road studio technician Ken Townsend to meet the recording needs of the Beatles. Let me explain. Many modern doublers simply delay the audio compared to the original track in order to thicken the source. But with ADT, sometimes the doubled sound is ahead of the reference track and sometimes it lags behind, with constant fluctuations, keeping the doubling effect richer and more interesting rhythmically. Basically, we are using two modeled tape machines, the source and the double. Each tape machine delivers separate saturation, flutter, pitch fluctuations and more. In this way, Real ADT creates the impression of two truly distinct tracks out of one take, and therefore your guitar or voice become bigger and wider. How to use this technique? Well, I have created in Cubase an effect track where I have inserted the Real ADT plugin. In the plugin I have set the source signal to 0 and I have spread the left and right pan knobs. Then I have added the ADT effect track as a send in my lead guitar track. Here it is important to set properly the send level, and I like when the effect is barely audible, but if you remove it, you miss it. Let's hear it. Let's go ahead. Thanks to the second trick I'm gonna explain, we can make a specific instrument to sit better in the mix, removing unwanted or annoying frequencies, but only when needed. I'm talking about multi-band compressors. So, for instance, here I have a comping track that is becoming really too much booming when I hit the low string. Let's hear it. Now, I can remove the unwanted frequency using an equalizer, but the problem is that in this way I would always remove it and the guitar track would become sterile. Using a multiband compressor, in this case a FabFilter MB, I can tame this frequency only when needed. Let's hear the result. I have to say that once I started using multiband compressors, I said to myself, why I have not spent enough time to learn this technique previously? It is such a time saver. I have used this technique also for my bass tracks, as sometimes we have specific notes that are too much high in volumes, especially when you hit the low strings in the bass. Okay, let's now jump to another trick. As you know, it is pretty unusual to work in a perfectly treated room, where all the frequencies are perfectly reproduced. Any room has its own impact on our listening experience, and its frequency response may lead us in wrong directions while mixing. Now, for me, I found that the Sony Ball plugin True Balance can come to help. I basically leave it always open in my mix bus so that I have always available a visual representation of the frequency response of my mix versus a reference track or the sonible universal reference track. This is of a great help, especially for properly setting the bass frequencies that really require good speakers and a great listening room to be heard properly. Visualizing the curve of my mix against a reference track is actually helping me a lot to make the right decisions. Let's go ahead with a pretty interesting technique. It consists in using different brands of mixing console builders for similar instruments, for instance NEVE, API or SSL, of course using our favorite plugin simulations. The idea here is that if you have similar instruments, for instance a comping guitar track and a lead one, you can use a NEVE EQ for the lead guitar and an API for the comping one. In fact, API and NEVE are different animals with their own analog vibe and flavor, and therefore they help differentiating our tracks. I mean, they help to make these tracks sit better in the mix with a more pleasing and interesting overall sound. This is very subtle, but actually it works, at least for me. So let's make an example. In this track I have used an API EQ for the comping guitar and a NEVE one for the lead guitar. Let's hear the before and after. Now, of course, I'm also making different equalization to help the tracks fit together, but the flavor and tonal differences of the NEVE and API channel strips actually help to increase the tonal balance of these two tracks. As I said, this is subtle, but very cool in my opinion, and I have actually learned it watching some videos done by Joe Carell. Still from Joe Carell, I have learned the next technique, which is really simple. And in fact, I asked myself, after having watched the Joe video, what the hell, why I didn't think previously about it. As you probably know, it is pretty common to use a compressor in our mix bus to glue together our mix. I'm currently using the West Dion here in my analog rack. Now, this glue effect may be altered by our drum bass, as especially when the snare or the crash hit hard, they can cause some spike and therefore they may trigger our compressor, obliging us to set it lower. Now, the solution here is simply to put a limiter in our drum bass to tame these spikes, just by a tiny bit. In this way, we remove these spikes also from our mix bus, allowing our gluing compressor to work better. Nice and easy. The last game changer experience for me is mixing using headphones. As I said previously, it is pretty difficult to have perfect mixing rooms, and each room has its own frequency response. And that's one of the reasons why it is difficult to create mixes that perfectly translate in different listening environments, like our car, our hi-fi system, etc. What can really help here is a good pair of flat headphones used in conjunction with a room simulation software. In my case, I use this Audi's LCD-X with the Real Phones 2 software loaded in my Cubase monitoring track so that it does not influence my mix bounce. Now, why these headphones that are pretty expensive? Because they are planar. I will not enter here in the details about how planar speaker works. Let me just say that they are extremely detailed. On the other hand, When you mix with headphones, you typically lose the frequency and phase interaction that you have between the left and right speakers. And that's the reason why we need a room simulation software that in my case is Realphones 2. This software also allows us to simulate specific environments like a car, a famous mixing studio, etc. In this way, allowing us to test our mix in different spaces without having to actually physically move to those spaces, which is a great time saver. Now, I'm using all these techniques and many others in a project that I can't wait to share with you in the channel, so stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know what is your favorite mixing and mastering technique in the comment section below, and I really hope that this video can help you to grasp some ideas, bringing your mix to the next level. Thank you for watching and see you soon. Bye.